Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phil's Place. 6:50 a.m. Sunday morning, the 15th of March. I am normally not awake this early on a Sunday morning. I can promise you that much. Power went out about like 5 o'clock this morning, something like that. I can't remember. And it was only out for just a few minutes, but because it woke me up, I automatically started looking at my phone. And right away, I saw... And I never talk about Formula One racing. I like Formula One a lot, but I never thought that I would ever talk about F1 racing on this podcast. But a 19-year-old kid from Italy, Kimi Antonelli, won the Chinese Grand Prix. The second youngest, I believe, to ever win any type of F1 race. The youngest was Max Verstappen, who at the age of 18 won whichever Grand Prix it was in 2016 at the age of 18. But I started paying a little bit of attention just over a week ago when they were doing the qualifiers for the first race of the season. It's the Australian Grand Prix. And in the qualifiers, Kimi Antonelli finished second and put him, second, not at the pole, but, starting second in the lineup. And I'm like, I never heard of this kid. So I looked him up. I'm like, geez, he's only 19. So, and he ended up finishing second in the Australian Grand Prix. His teammate, George Russell, they both raced for AMG Mercedes. It was George Russell, then Kimi Hernandez finished 1 and 2. And as it turned out, today in Shanghai, China, Kimi, I almost said Hernandez, because I think Kiki Hernandez is a baseball player for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Anyway, Kimi Antonelli actually won the qualifier, so he was in a pole position going into the race this morning, and he finished first, and George Russell finished second. I don't know the stat on that, but I think that's one of the first times in a long time where teammates finished 1 and 2 respectively in the first two races in the F1 circuit. But anyway, I just want to give a big shout out to Kimi Antonelli. I don't know how much you know about F1 racing. If you've ever studied these cars, they're not really cars, they're machines. I am not a mechanic. I, would be lucky if I can change the oil in our two vehicles, but these are true machines. I was exposed to a car that was built by mechanical engineering students at Carnegie Mellon University years ago. Back when I worked at Duquesne University, we were doing one of the SciTech days where we, were representing our universities at the Carnegie Science Center. And the students from CMU, the mechanical engineering students, actually brought their car that they built, that they race. And they race against other top university mechanical engineering programs, their undergraduate students. Very impressive. So it kind of made me look at F1 racing in a different way, and just became that much more impressed with these vehicles and how they're built, how fast they go, how great they handle, especially at, higher rates of speed. The strategy of racing, I'm still not 100% sure what the strategy is. But if you ever watch a race and you see a pit stop, I don't think these drivers and their teams are more than 4 seconds. That includes getting all 4 tires changed, getting gas in the car, all that stuff. And they're back onto the track. It's just super, super, super cool. And I have a lot of respect for NASCAR racing and Indy racing as well. This goes back to when I was a little kid. I was like the Indy 500. And then in high school, I got a little more turned on in NASCAR racing. I never really delved truly into it. I've never been to a race or anything like that. And here in the States, there's only 3 races via F1 circuit. They race in Miami around Hard Rock Stadium. There's a track in Austin, Texas. They have a race there. And then they do street racing in Las Vegas. I think they just have only done that for a couple years now. But if you're interested and getting to know more about F1 racing, I highly recommend it. Again, these cars are just crazy fast. And for a 19-year-old, freshman in college technically, if he were an American and going to college, or even, it doesn't matter where he's from, if he's at university studying, he's in his first year. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing to be that young and have that skill set to win a Grand Prix in the F1 circuit. So, but anyway, there's a lot of other things going on. We got the final round of the Players Championship, TPC Sawgrass, down outside of Jacksonville, Florida. World Baseball Classic, USA plays. I think Paul Skeens is pitching, and it's a one and done. You know, whoever wins, they advance. Whoever loses, they go home, back to spring training. And what else is going on? I don't know. It's early. I did wake up, like I said, a few hours ago. I already had 2 cups of coffee. Tomorrow, I'm officially launching Clarke Consulting Group's third wing, which I anticipate to be very, very significant. It's the strategic communication consulting wing of CCG. And the website is about 97% finished. I just have to make sure all the pages are fluid, links are set up appropriately, email accounts are set up appropriately. I think I mentioned whenever I introduced this last week on Phil's Place that I have my son Brandon helping. He's going to be tackling all the social media for any companies that want to up their game, their social media game. Brandon does pretty well with social media accounts, and so I am just so looking forward to getting this out there. I may mention it one more time on this podcast, but I'm really thinking about adding a second podcast that's separate from Phil's Place, because the purpose of this podcast is to focus on sports, music, culture, and travel with the theme of place, which I never really had to go into what the theme of place is, the philosophy of place. I think everybody has, in their lived experiences, should know what that is. When you find yourself embedded in a certain culture, in a certain city, could be your hometown, could be the house you were born in, the street that you grew up on, the high school that you attended, university you attended, where you work, where you travel to. When you find yourself embedded and feel great about a certain location that you're at, that's kind of like, what place is. So, but it gets much deeper than that. Okay, so the Pittsburgh Penguins, yes, I always like to talk about the Penguins now. They had a big win last night in Salt Lake City. They beat the Utah Mammoth by a score of 5-4, I think it was. Yeah, 5-4, because they were down 2-0, tied the game up, took a 3-2 lead. Utah tied it, made it 3-3. Maybe the score was 4-3. I can't remember. I didn't look it up because I didn't think I was going to talk about it, but I know that they're at 81 points, and they're tied with the Islanders with 81 points in the Metropolitan Division. So they really, really need to it's going to be very hard. They play on Monday night, tomorrow night at Colorado, and, they're the best team in the league. They are just, every facet of their game is top shelf. 5-on-5, 4-on-4, power plays, playing shorthanded, whatever, goaltending, defense, you name it. They've got the guys, they've got a great system. That's why they're the best team in the league. So let's hope that the Penguins do at least get a point in Denver tomorrow night when they play the Avalanche. And then they have one more game after that on the road against the Carolina Hurricanes. They started their road trip in Carolina, almost snuck out with 2 points actually. Hard fought third period, a very dramatic finish because they were down 4-2, tied it at 4, went to overtime, nothing happened there. And then they lost in the shootout, and that's where the Penguins have kind of hurt themselves. They have too many shootouts and too many negative outcomes where they just get the 1 point instead of 2 points. And that's been their weakness this season. And then they come home next weekend. They play against Winnipeg at 1 o'clock. They play against Carolina again on Sunday at 3 o'clock. And then I know they host Colorado, playing in the second time. I believe that game's on Tuesday at 7 p.m. So anyway, it's a very crucial rest of the season for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's just say it that way. I'm not prepared yet to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and all their signings from this past week. All I can say is I'm very happy with who they signed. They really strengthened their defensive unit, needed to be strengthened. And of course, with the new coaching staff, probably a different philosophy as far as, how they'll be running their defense. I'm kind of excited now to see how these guys will do. But I'll probably end up bringing one of my friends on who knows a lot about football to talk Steelers football and to review each signee from last week. I just know, we should say kudos to Omar Khan. He did a great job, he and his team. I'm sure he worked very closely with Mike McCarthy and his assistants, the defensive coordinator, because they really did focus on, like I said, the defensive units. And then that's about it. I just felt like I had to get on. I'm not tired enough to go back to sleep. These things happen, you know. Yesterday, a lot of people celebrated St. Patrick's Day. I understand there was another great turnout at the parade downtown. And a lot of revelers who were out yesterday, last night. We went out. I'm a designated driver because I quit drinking 2 years ago, but I still have a fun time going out to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and had a nice time at a friend's house, and then going to the local bar not too far from where we live. So I did get to bed a little bit later, didn't get as much sleep as I wanted to, but that's okay. Those things happen. And then I'm just really, really excited about tomorrow getting Clarke Consulting Group's name out there to go after some customers who are looking to strengthen their narrative, their message, how they deliver their message, what their taglines are, what their slogans are, how they approach social media, how they approach advertising opportunities, how they market their companies, you know, and how they do it, you know, against their competition. So, and I have some ideas with that second podcast, not just me speaking to my little green light here, the camera, about, you know, proper ways of effective strategic communication, but having guests on, you know, people who are leaders, people who are presidents, CEOs, director of sales, director of operations, whatever their titles are. I'm gonna be reaching out to that audience and have good, solid, candid conversations about why communication is just so important in any type of business setting, in any organization. It doesn't matter the field. It doesn't matter the industry, you know. But I have a lot of experience with internal communication, external communication, organizational communication, just, you know, all different types of communication. I studied it. It was part of my profession. And we're talking, you know, 30 years of me working, you know, any type of communication line. So it's just, you know, such an important part of how people do business. So, okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope that you watch this. I hope that you like it. For those of you who have a YouTube account, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Phil's Place. For those of you who do not have a YouTube account, you don't need to have an account to still go on to YouTube and search out Phil's Place and subscribe to it. Like it, tell your friends. I do believe that, you know, I'm having a great time with this podcast. I've mentioned this before, but, you know, I have 234 subscribers on YouTube. I get a lot of hits on TikTok and on Instagram when I produce reels and shorts and get those out on those social media channels. I never mention it, but I do have a Spotify account. So if you're taking a short drive, or when I say short drive, like an hour's drive, you have to go somewhere, or, you know, if you have, you know, a longer distance drive on the PA Turnpike or anywhere else in the country, or anywhere in the world, you know, you can find my podcast, Phil's Place, on Spotify. So, okay, well, thank you very much. Have a great Sunday. Have a great rest of your weekend. And look out for another announcement and basically a social media presence I'm going to have with Clarke Consulting Group's, strategic communication entity that I started, and just looking forward to getting into it. Okay. Again, thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.